Right, 22 September 2023, and today I have decided to come and give you a quick update on the post-election events in Zimbabwe, what is happening now, and what is going to happen very, very soon. And it's going to be extremely action-packed this weekend. I'm also going to be revealing a secret recording of Nelson Chamisa that was recently taken and has been circulated among Zimbabwe intelligence officials. So this is very, very interesting, and I am going to be unpacking for you what is happening, what is going to happen, and how Zimbabwe is going to be changed forever within the next few weeks. We are reaching a point now where things are going to start happening. Chamisa on one side, SADC on the other side. Everyone has got an opinion about what is happening in Zimbabwe, but the reality is that President Mnangagwa is now firmly accepted at the United Nations as the president of Zimbabwe. He's also firmly accepted in SADC by people like President Ramaphosa, who see him as one of their own. So President Ramaphosa sees President Mnangagwa as one of their own. But today I want to look at the deep and wide differences between President Ramaphosa and President Thabo Mbeki on the issue of Zimbabwe. President Thabo Mbeki gave an interview this week, and this interview was given to the SABC on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly 78. He also gave, the SABC also had an interview with the President Ramaphosa. So President Ramaphosa and President Thabo Mbeki, they were all there. And you should watch the interview with President Thabo Mbeki. Very, very interesting interview. And this interview showed the depth of President Thabo Mbeki. If you listen to President Thabo Mbeki, you can easily see he was the best president that South Africa has ever had. He speaks very, very well. He speaks deeply on the issues of debt, issues of corruption, issues of capital flight from Africa. It's amazing the way he articulates these issues. But today I want to look at his articulation on the issues of Zimbabwe. So I want us to go to the video, and this video is on the SABC website or Facebook page. I'm going to share it now, and then I'll also try to share the video by President Thabo Mbeki. President Ramaphosa, sorry, I'm confusing the two because they're all the presidents of South Africa. All right, so let's go to this interview here. It's on 17 minutes if you want to watch it later on. So let's go back to 17 minutes and watch what he said.
I really don't know. This time I have not been very close to these Zimbabwe processes, but as far as I knew, after the SADC observers had made their comments, virtually saying, as far as we're concerned, these elections were not representative of popular opinion, and submitted their report to the chair of the SADC organ, President Hichilema of Zambia. I don't know what happened after that. Because I would presume that then the SADC organ would have had to study the report and make a decision or suggestion as to what is to be done. I mean, you remember when after the 2008 elections, which were very, very disputed, and then the second round of the presidential elections marked by a lot of violence. After that, the Zimbabwe parties agreed that really the only way to respond to this reality is that they must come together into a government of national unity. It was
right. So I want you to understand what President Thabo Mbeki is saying before I play for you what President Ramaphosa is saying. President Thabo Mbeki is saying the election in Zimbabwe was not free and fair, did not represent the wishes of the people of Zimbabwe. Therefore, Similar to 2018, the Zimbabwe election in 2023 requires the two leaders or the two competitors, which is President Mnangagwa and President Nelson Chamisa, to sit down together and talk and form a government of national unity. He is saying that report has been presented to the Southern Organ on Politics and Defense. This is what he's saying. And I want to show you what President Ramaphosa is saying. So I'm going to play for you the interview by President Ramaphosa. So let's share this video very, very quickly because I tend to find it difficult to do these videos on Fridays. So
As
let's do
Zimbabwe
it.
is still keenly waiting for the SADC leaders to discuss the observer mission's scathing reports on the recent elections, President Ramaphosa says the regional bloc is yet to receive the comprehensive report.
What was said by a representative of the observer mission is still got to be discussed in SADC because it's not a final report. And if one looks at that report, it actually says there were challenges with regard to a number of things that have to do with elections. And many countries around the world have such challenges. The United States is, a prime example with regard to their last election. So there are challenges, and they have said in the report, as I read it, that certain things need to be improved.
Ramaphosa has also indicated that the observer mission report did not nullify the recent elections. The president met with his Zimbabwean counterpart, President Emmerson Mnangagwa, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York.
Where there's a lack of transparency, they need to come up with the details.
Right. So I want to stop playing these videos, and I want us to go into the analysis. And I want you guys to understand what is happening here. And anyway, I'm going to unpack it for you. The biggest problem we have in Southern Africa, in SADC right now, is South Africa. So the South African government is a very, very big problem. The best president we have right now in South Africa is President Hakainde Hichilema. Now, the problem that we have is that the South African government has failed to bring the economy to the same levels that President Thabo Mbeki and even President Jacob Zuma had brought the economy. The South African economy is in deep trouble, specifically the government of South Africa. It cannot function without the labor of outsiders. So I want to explain to you this because I understand it. About a year ago or 2 years ago, I worked for the government of South Africa in one of the provincial governments. And in the departments of that government, the senior positions that were open, so a position from manager, senior manager, director going up, it's more than 60% of the positions are not occupied. They're not occupied, but they cannot employ. So the South African government is basically not functional. And if you go to President Thabo Mbeki's interview, you will get this. There is a lack of capacity. So go back and watch President Thabo Mbeki's interview. You understand what he says there. There's a lack of capacity to deliver. And the government of South Africa cannot release capital. This is a fact. And these are the facts on the ground. And to make matters worse, if you were to remove all the Zimbabweans in the banking sector today, so that is the people working IT, the people working at the back office of all the banks in South Africa, if you remove them all today, all the South African banks will stop working that day. I'm not talking about 2 or 3 days. I'm talking here management level, technical level. So basically what has happened is that the Zimbabweans are now basically running the back office of the most important institutions, private and public. So understand the context of why South Africa does not want things to go well in Zimbabwe. Basically, that is the short of it. Go and look at the production or the products in this on sale in Zimbabwe. From a retail perspective, it's GAM, it's Macro, it's Pick and Pay, it's Checkers, it's BP, I don't know, the Sasso companies, all these oil companies that you have here in South Africa. This is what is happening. Zimbabwe is basically now a supermarket of South Africa and a provider of cheap labor. So that is what you have to understand. Why President Ramaphosa is motivated to simply ignore the situation in Zimbabwe. It does not serve South Africa right now to release the Zimbabweans to go back to their home country. And it could easily be done. If South Africa was to wake up today and say, fix the situation in Zimbabwe, one phone call, Zimbabwe will be back to normal. So here is the problem. President Hakainde Hichilema, chairperson of the organ, has attempted to present the report of SADC to the other people who are in that organ, but they cannot act against South Africa. They cannot act without South Africa participating and agreeing that the election in Zimbabwe was not properly done and they must rerun the election. Not only that, if you look at President Thabo Mbeki, he's clearly saying that there is need for a 5 years during which there will be reforms, because even doing a rerun of the election now would be useless. So President Thabo Mbeki is presenting a solution based on the situation on the ground. And at the same time, President Ramaphosa is not interested in that solution because it will mean a very serious and devastating problem for South Africa. And don't underestimate this problem that I'm telling you about. Many government departments in South Africa are not functional. And this is because of lack of human resources. You have people, but you really don't have people. You need someone who can deliver. And that delivery is not there, especially in the government departments. No one wants to work, especially in the government departments, similar to other countries. The guys do what they want, they come when they want, they do what they want, and they only go there to collect the paycheck. So this is the problem that we have. That is why South Africa is so interested or so uninterested in development taking place in Zimbabwe. So there's a diagrammatical difference, or a very big difference, between what an independent president like President Thabo Mbeki, who sees the situation from outside, and the South African government that understands the impact of not having skilled workforce. Because this is all about the skilled workforce. This is only about the supply and demand dynamics of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is become a serious supplier of cheap labor and a serious supplier or a serious supermarket, similar to Mozambique. If you go to Mozambique, I was there a few years ago. Every functional thing you see in Mozambique is South African. The South African government has got an oil drilling or a gas drilling project offshore, which is about, I think, 50,000 square kilometers or something. I don't know how, a huge place worth $50 billion, which they're drilling there. The war in Cabo Delgado, they have bypassed that war by drilling or putting in place a pipeline which goes directly to collect the gas from wherever they're producing it. And this is a partnership with SASO. I've gone into great depth to explain how the South African banks are affected by the war in Mozambique and what they've done to make sure that that war does not spread from that particular area where the guys were fighting. So don't underestimate the political, economic, and social factors affecting the South Africans and why there's so much difference between, take for example, Botswana. Botswana is fed up of Zimbabweans. Namibia is fed up. Malawi is fed up. Zambia has become the second place after South Africa where Zimbabweans go. The moment you drive into Zambia, all you see is Zimbabweans. Areas like Chirundu at the border, it's become a place where Zimbabweans just go in all the way up to the DRC. It's Zimbabweans who are just flocking to these countries. So the situation in Zimbabwe won't be solved until the situation in South Africa is solved. And you can see that obviously there's no solution to that. Listen to President Thabo Mbeki. There is a very big problem. And it won't happen, this rerun won't happen. The only thing that can happen is a government of national unity, which is something that I always encourage the guys in CCC to understand. They need to be in government to make it functional. Because if they are not in government, the situation that we have now, because your president is closer to SADC, is closer to South Africa, they're obviously going to protect him, and there will be no rerun. You spend another 5 years. After 5 years, the similar thing will happen. A new president from ZANU-PF or a new candidate from ZANU-PF is going to come, and you contest against him, you complain of rigging, and then another 5 years. Chamisa will be 10 years from now. Chamisa will probably be 52. What about in 20 years' time? Do you have the staying power to go election after election after election, saying you've been rigged? So that is the situation that we have here. Very, very big difference between these two presidents, and the reasons that I've outlined to you. Clear economic interests on the part of South Africa, and President Hakainde Hichilema in a very, very tight spot. He can't do anything with this report. Even if the report was to be discussed, which I know it has been discussed, by now there should have been a solution. People have been quiet. The elders came to Zimbabwe, they were declined or denied entry. People have been quiet. So what do you think? You think suddenly there's going to be an instruction that there must be an election? I don't think so. And under what conditions are you going to have that election? So these are the real true issues that we have. South Africa now deeply interested in the situation in Zimbabwe continuing the way it is, or at least elongating the situation by doing nothing to benefit in the meantime. And unfortunately, the situation in South Africa cannot be solved that way. There's need for a big change in South Africa. And President Thabo Mbeki goes into deep detail about what needs to be done. He even explains that the private sector in South Africa has offered people, and still the government was unable to do anything. And the issues of capital that I was explaining, there are no infrastructure projects. This is simple. The guys in South Africa, they do not have the interest in moving the country in the right direction. The power situation is going to make everything worse. Only the private sector can do anything. But without those infrastructure projects, nothing is going to happen. So this is the situation. Two big differences, two different opinions from two presidents. President Thabo Mbeki says there should be a period of about 5 years where there's a GNU, and President Ramaphosa says no one has seen that report. What the people are saying, what the SADC observer mission is saying, is not what is in the report. That's what he's saying. And if they've got anything different, they must say it. Otherwise, as far as he's concerned, the election was free and fair. That is what President Ramaphosa said, opposed to President Thabo Mbeki. Right. Now, I want to quickly look at the comments. Right. I want to start with Lawrence. This is really tiring. Could you just tell us the way forward? If you have the way, Mr. Shamboko, let me tell you a secret about a fight among brothers. A fight among brothers cannot be solved by foreigners. Otherwise, the foreigners will inherit your wealth. Do you hear that saying? If you're fighting with a brother, don't ask a foreign person to come and intervene. They'll inherit your wealth. I think the old people used to say this saying long back. Right, let's go to Tafazo. In your last video, you said SADC offensive failed. So what is this? I'm explaining to you that Chamisa's SADC offensive failed. Tafazo. President Ramaphosa is telling you that the SADC report that they received does not say the election was not free and fair. So don't listen to people who are telling you things that they have not analyzed. Go and watch very, very carefully what President Ramaphosa is saying. He's saying the SADC observer mission in Zimbabwe, the things that they said on the stage is not what is on the report. So nothing is going to happen. The election, there was nothing wrong with the election, in short. That's what he's saying. Then let's look at Philip says, so SA, the one Zimbabweans who can deliver and also cheap labor. True, that is well known. South Africa has got a serious labor crisis. I cannot begin to explain to you what is happening in government departments. The thing that is happening in government departments in South Africa, the systems are there, but there's no one at home to operate them. The person who designed the South African government, he did a great job. The structures are there, everything that you can imagine is there. But the person who can operate those systems consistently and with interest is not there. I think the guys who have worked in the South African government here, they understand what I'm talking about. It is a very big problem. The problem we have in South Africa is not anything else. It's the lack of human capital. And President Mbeki went in great detail to explain that lack of capacity. What he calls capacity. There's a lack of capacity in South Africa. And the banking sector, especially in South Africa, is such a Zimbabwean operated institution that anything that happens that will disrupt the availability of Zimbabwean labor is going to be a very, very big problem. And I'm talking here about grinding to a halt. The audit sector itself, the guys who are in audit, there will be no audits in this country if you don't have the Zimbabwean guys operating. So it has to be a fair assessment, but it also has to be fair to the Zimbabweans that while we get the people who work here, we cannot make life hell for the people that live in Zimbabwe, because right now nothing is happening in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is ground to a halt. After the election, everything has stopped in Zimbabwe. Nothing is moving. If you go to Zimbabwe right now, there is no one planning an investment. There's no one planning a building. Everybody is just waiting for something to happen. Every morning, people ask each other, what is happening? Who said what? That is all that people do in Zimbabwe at the moment. So it's terrible what is happening in that country. And this needs to be addressed. There is need for leadership to address this situation. Leadership on the opposition side and leadership on the ZANU-PF side. This politics that they have is destroying everybody's life. And people are hurting every day. People are hurting inside Zimbabwe and people are hurting outside the country. Right, I think I've said enough. As I said, tomorrow, I'm going to release a secret recording of Nelson Chamisa that has worried Zimbabwe intelligence. He made a speech after the release of the election results, and Zimbabwe intelligence is not happy with what he said in that video. So I happened to see and get a copy of that video. And my suggestion is there is great need for people to talk. Because if the situation remains the way it is right now in Zimbabwe, there is going to be a little spark that is going to just make everything a mess for everybody. That country needs people to take a position of leadership and to take a position of compromise. Everybody needs to play their part in nation building. What is happening now where people just sit one that side, and all the religious leaders just sit over here. No one wants to stand up and say, guys, there's a problem here. Let's fix it. That is going to produce a very, very big problem. And as I said, Zimbabweans, they don't need someone from outside to mediate this issue. It's clear, the issues are clear. Chamisa needs to be given his place. ED needs to be given his place. Let's go through these 5 years. Let's take SADC to come in and give us advice on reforming our elections. Our elections are a problem. And the whole country has been a problem because of elections. Zimbabwean elections are the worst elections because as soon as one finishes, people start planning the next. The whole country only does elections and nothing else. So from tomorrow, you're going to be hearing someone talk about 2020 8 elections. And then you hear someone coming 2023, 33 elections. That's all the people are doing right now, planning elections. And people are getting old, people are dying without a plan. That is the problem that we have in Zimbabwe. Right, so I really appreciate all of you watching here. Please go and watch this interview with President Thabo Mbeki. Amazing interview. That man can be a president that you'll be proud of. If a country had a president like President Thabo Mbeki, and the South Africans, I don't think they understand what they lost when they lost President Thabo Mbeki as a president. And this is something that you need to go and watch and understand what he understands about the world, about Africa, about the situation in South Africa, and the situation all over the world. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I know it's a Friday, but we'll be back here tomorrow. I'll try to keep coming here every day so that we can wrap up this issue. And as I said, we're not going to shy away from being part of the solution. I have so much deep knowledge of the players in Zimbabwe. Most of the guys that you know, I've been into their houses. I have seen their wife. I've seen their kids. I know where they live. What do you think about most people? I know exactly what is and what is not. The people that you think are a solution, some of them are not your solution. So the solution is you. Everybody that is watching here, you are the solution. Don't look at other people. They do not have the capacity that you think they have. The capacity that we have as Zimbabweans is to change this thinking, this divided thinking, and taking sides and thinking this one is better than the other. We all need to come together now and work for the future of our families, because what is happening now, we are just going to be used everywhere. And at the end of the day, our own country is going to be collapsing into what is happening in North Africa right now, where you don't know what is going to happen. You don't know who is who. You see people just jumping around all over the place with no direction. Such educated people, you cannot be doing what is happening now in Zimbabwe. Right. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate all of you. And I'll be back again tomorrow. Good night, and please enjoy your Friday.
Anovura meso, anovura nzebe, anogaya marigi. Kama kwetu kom, kwetu kom usasai. Kama kwe anogaya marigi.
Kamba kwe uyo, anotara mari, anogaya mari, garai mamunzwa. Paninya pano, zvamunoda kunzwa, zvinotara pano.